Hello and welcome to the very special 20th edition of Finally Replying to Old Comments. What makes it special? The number ends in a zero. That makes it special, right? Zero, circle, circle of life, cycle of the universe. Everything is round, whatever. Let's get to the comment from part 19, the last time. There was one from Megatini who said, I can only assume my comments were so perfectly perfect that no other comments needed to be added to it, or as flat earthers might say, so perfectly flat you wouldn't bring a curvature to behold it. I claim perfection, not originality. Smiley wink. Oh, flat earthers, speaking of nothing is round. Yeah, everything you see, the ground is flat, so therefore all grounds must be flat. Well, then why do you believe that the moon and the sun are right above the sphere when you've never been to the glass dome that keeps us all in the flat earth and you don't know how far away the sun is because you've never been to it? But I claim perfection, not originality. I've done that myself a few times. Thanks for the comment, Megatini. You got quite a streak going for commenting on these newer videos. Even though it's replying to old comments, I've had so few comments to the new videos, I can reply to those too. Okay, now picking up where we left off in this smooth transition. The comment section of his master plan revealed, part 8. Almost done, only 6 comments left in this one. Then we move on to part 9. Samuel Williams said, thanks for another download. Your insights seem to marry my own, plus more thrown in. Thanks again. Greetings from Newquay, UK. Thank you, Samuel Williams. Isn't it amazing that, imagine that all humans are like one species. We're all one species, but imagine if we're all like the same life. And when we were all tribes in Africa hundreds of thousands of years ago, imagine before we set off to leave the continent, that band of cavemen was like, well, okay, we're heading off to explore the world now. Good luck staying here in Africa. And the tribe staying in Africa was like, yeah, good luck out there. Maybe we'll see you again sometime. They're like, yeah, maybe we'll see you again sometime. Maybe in their caveman language, they had some kind of a conversation like that where they said goodbye and they went their separate ways. And humans spread throughout the world. And now here we are hundreds of thousands of years later. And we're meeting each other again from across the world. We spread all over the world and now we're getting in touch with each other. That's amazing when you think about it. As long as you don't look at us as spreading like a plague, which if you fly over the world, it can sometimes give you that impression and you see our influence on it. But maybe the earth created humans to have that kind of influence on itself, like that great George Carlin joke. Anyway, Marigold Mirror 5194 said, I enjoy your personality. Thanks, Marigold Mirror, and I enjoy the comments that you leave. J.D. Baker Associates said, to Chris, bad-mouthing Shanann is what gets him approval from his circle of friends. Watch how Chris's friends and family describe Shanann. All negative. Negative, but Shanann family and friends, they can't say enough great things about Chris. That's why Chris is doing it, and the agents pick up on that and start blaming Shanann to get him to talk. Yeah, you're right on the money, and I think I go into that a little in the follow-up series, A Loving Family Man, I think, about the prison interview. But they do it here, too. At the end of this, they catch on to what Chris responds to, and he pretty much does have a tunnel vision where he just tries to figure out what the person he's talking to wants to hear, and then he says that to them. So at a certain point in the interrogation, Graham and Tammy trick Chris into thinking that they just want to hear a confession, and they never say it, but like, just give us the confession and like pretty much we'll let you go is the implication. And because Chris is kind of, that comment reminds me of this this enlightening thing I heard Jordan Peterson say years ago, where why would you badmouth your own wife? You picked her. How stupid is that to badmouth your own? Why would you complain about life with your wife when you're still with her? You can just leave right this minute. You can call up a lawyer and say, I want to get a divorce. So why are you complaining about it? Why would you you're making yourself look bad by doing that. But Chris doesn't think that deeply into it. He's just thinking surface level. The people in front of me like when I say X, Y, and Z, so I will continue to say X, Y, and Z until they like me. And yeah, like J.D. Baker Associates just said there, Graham and Tammy used that tactic perfectly to get him to, basically go to prison. Next up, is it Hero or Hyro? Hyro Forever said, CW also repeatedly tells that stupid braggadocio about him putting her prescriptions in her pillbox, as if it's cause for husband of the year and counterbalances him murdering her and her babies. He does so much good, talks so well about himself. It's all about himself. And I covered this extensively earlier on in this series about how he puts so much emphasis on these little things that everyone just does, expecting no feedback, no pats on the back. He tells them are as if they're landmark stories in his life, like running back, forgetting his ID in the car, and then running back to the car to get the ID and running back to the concert. That, in his words, is the way he won over Shanann and convinced her to be the mother of his children. Like, that would be so important. And I pointed out how I did a similar thing, and I've never even thought it was a good enough story to tell in a boring life. I'm not a hero. My dreams never came true. I do nothing exciting. And I've never thought that story was good enough to tell. Chris tells it as if it's a landmark moment in his life that won over the mother of his kids. So yeah, he definitely puts way too much emphasis on the things he does. And on the other side of that, I never get the sense of how he really feels about his wife and kids. Like, he mostly says nice things about them. The only time he badmouths his wife and kids is in that kind of joking way, like, oh yeah, it's annoying, but, I love them. I miss them throwing chicken nuggets at me. Oh, I miss having to give them all their medicine every night. It's like, complaining about it because he really does hate doing all that stuff, and he really does hate those things about his wife and kids. But he's saying it in a way like, oh, I'm just a loving, friendly guy, to hide his true feelings. But he mostly says nice things about them to put across that he's such a great guy and he loves his wife and kids. But the thing is, for all the great things he says about his wife and kids, that was what was missing for me, why I kept going back to the footage of him talking so many times, is that I never felt like their stories were told, no matter how much he talks about them. It's like he never really got to know them. So no matter how much he talks about them, he's never really telling their story. And we can see why, because he's mostly concerned about his story, which we all are. We're all kind of the main character of our own story, because we're the only ones in the history of the world who will live our lives. So we have to be the main character of our own story. But, I think like everything else, it's on a spectrum. And Chris is at the far end of the spectrum as far as caring about himself more than others, as you pointed out here. Okay, Hero Forever had another comment and said, I never expect creators to respond to my comments. I find they do occasionally, and that's fine, and I'm grateful. Well, Hero Forever, what do you think about this response? Thanks for the comment. I am grateful for your comment. And Jimmy T, I've been waiting for this comment for months. I've been waiting to get to this so I could finally do this reply for months. And it's finally here. Jimmy T said, you're doing a great job. Well, Jimmy T, let me ask you something. Did typing that comment make your fingers hurt? What's that? Your fingers hurt? Oh, well, now your back's going to hurt because you just pulled landscaping duty. Does anybody else's fingers hurt? Didn't think so. Happy Gilmore, y'all. Jimmy T has my favorite profile picture of almost anyone on YouTube. It's a picture of Ben Stiller as the evil nurse in Happy Gilmore. So I've been waiting maybe years, maybe since I first saw it years ago when he left that comment. I've been wanting to get some kind of response like that, and it was just never the right time, never the right place. And that day has finally arrived. This is a special video, part 20. It's just not just because it ends in a 0. It's special after all. Okay. Oh crap, I was trying to get ahead of myself and get to the next video. Well, anyway, that concludes the comment section for part 8 of his master plan revealed. And now we're moving on to part 9 of his master plan revealed comment section. And we start off with Anaz575. Hi, Michael. Being a qualified nurse, I have never seen a body turn blue, in that short amount of time. He said Shanann was on top of Cece and she turned blue. What bullshit. Oh yeah, see part 14 of his master plan revealed for my extensive coverage of how ridiculous his new story is that he makes up on the spot to go along with J.D. Baker Associates' comment about how he says whatever he thinks the person in front of him wants to hear to win them over. So he's making up this story on the spot because he thinks it's exactly what Graham and Tammy want to hear. And yeah, he overlooks so many details, including how quickly they would turn blue. And so he just stuck with this constipated attempt to describe what they really look like. They were just blue. They were just totally blue. And yeah, what bullshit. Anaz575 has another comment that says, Hi, Michael. Have you ever thought that there is a strong possibility that Shanann never saw the girls when she came back? He discarded them Sunday evening, then waited for Shanann. There was no emotional conversation, I don't believe. I have considered it. I'm not really sure how that plays into the timing because I think in the normal course of things, Shanann probably would have checked in on Bella and Celeste before she went to bed, but this was a special occasion where, she was going through health problems at the time. It was a late, delayed flight. She was getting home at 2 a.m. She had to wake up at whatever it was going to be, 4 or 5 a.m. for an appointment. So she was just beat, and probably I wouldn't be surprised if she never did go to bed. But regardless of whether she saw them first or not, we know that Chris, based on all the evidence that I've already covered so far, he waited for her to come into bed, regardless of whether or not she was going to check on the kids. I think he was planning that she would check the kids first because of the way he said, okay, it's 2 o'clock, she's in bed, it's go time. Like he was waiting for her to be in bed so he could start his plan. So he waited for her to be in bed, and then, okay, she's asleep, I'm going to go take care, put Belle and Celeste down for good, and then come back. And like you said, I don't think the emotional conversation is. I went into in great detail in part 4 of his master plan revealed. I think what he's referring to as the emotional conversation was really just him murdering Shanann while saying things that he didn't have the guts to say to her when she would be alive after he was done saying them. So he had to be saying them while murdering her, if he said anything at all. So thanks for the observation. It is interesting, or not interesting, but it's valuable to look at these kinds of things from every angle, look at every detail, so that the truth is what's most important. That's how you progress as a species out of Africa to where we're on the other sides of the globe communicating with each other hundreds of thousands of years later. That was all done by attention to detail, keen observations. One more from Anaz575. When D.A. Rourke was giving his speech in court, anybody notice the bailiff does not stop rubbing his palms together? This tells me that if he could, he would have strangled Chris. There were some misspellings there, that's why I hesitated. But I did not notice that either. And I mostly just listened to it. But yeah, that's about, I would hope so. I would hope so. Someone that took a job putting criminals away for a living would disagree with something like what Chris did to his wife and kids and would want to give him a taste of his own medicine. Okay, next comment. Alta Richardson says, "You are very good at what you do." Thank you, Alta Richardson. Diana GN8RP said, "Not sure anyone has ever mentioned this, but I think when Chris went to SC, I think he means South Carolina, that last week, and he and Shanann were bickering back and forth, the girls, Bella and Cece, must have known their mom was upset with him, and they seemed distant toward him, and I think in his sick head it justified him killing them. He knew they would want their mother over him, made him jealous." Yeah, that justified him killing them, along with many, many other things, all plucked out of the air once he decided, like, all of the complaints that we look at in retrospect and say, oh, that's why he killed them, that's why he killed them, they're all just normal things that the average father and husband puts up with, or is, even as I've given a few examples, is amused by. You know, some, the annoying kids that your things do. The annoying kids that your things do, you know? The annoying things that your kids do or your spouse does. Like, he took those things that other people would just laugh off or accept as, well, I've chosen to share my life with this person, therefore this comes with it. He actually put those into justifying killing them and thinking he was above them, instead of he only became to the level he was at because of them. That part he kind of, I think, conveniently forgets. So thanks for the comment, Diana GN8RP. Okay, Midnight Rider had a comment next, but I already replied to it, so I'll have to skip that one. And then I think we're going to be ending with P.S. Crampton, because P.S. Crampton has 3 long comments in a row. 4! No, but I replied to the 4th one. Well, let's see how far we get. P.S. Crampton said in the first comment, "Now let me tell you what the creep narcissist I dated did. Rather than murder their source of child support," he was more of a weasel coward narcissist than CW, "this dude broke you with me, proclaims he now wants to be, broke up with me, proclaims he now wants to be with and make a family commitment and is engaged to get married. Okay, of course I was lil broken-hearted, but he had me fooled like CW. Yeah, it's a shame. It happens to the best of us. In order for all this to work, the reason we've evolved to the level that we've evolved to is based on trust for each other. And that's why I've always said so many times on this channel how it's the lowest form of interaction is to betray someone's trust, because that brings us as a species backward, and it makes you the lowliest of the species to think you can use that as a weapon, as if no one else thought of that. A toddler can think of abusing someone's trust. So yeah, that's tough to deal with, because when someone betrays your trust, it's like you got taken advantage of by someone below you. That's the part that hurts so bad, because of everything I just said about how they're a lower life form to abuse someone's trust. Therefore, you're allowing a trust, and then they take advantage of it. And it's like, oh, that idiot took advantage of me. It really hurts. It's hard to get past. As they say, it leaves scars. But anyway, continuing on with your comment here. "He's such a good man. It's a noble decision. I can live with that. Trying to raise your child in family setting. Well, 2 years later, he sees me, says he didn't get married, and not only that, moved out on his own and had been for 8 months, and he wanted us to get back together." Boy, this sounds like a real come and go relationship. Continuing on, he put on an act to the mother of his child. Like CW, he got engaged and had her thinking they were going to get married. He only did it to get out of paying. You guessed it, child support payments. Unreal, poor girl. So I think you're saying he married you to get out of child support payments to the other girl that he was actually with? Oh man. Well, I understand how that left you scarred, and I hope that you became stronger for having survived that. And, that's kind of how we learn. If you're just walking through a field and you step on something that makes a weird sound, you're not going to immediately know that it's a landmine unless you're looking for landmines. But if you're a kid who just grew up and has never heard of the idea of a landmine, you're not going to know it's a landmine. When you step on it and it blows your leg off, you're going to be aware of landmines for the rest of your life and do what you can to avoid them. So hopefully that was your landmine. Okay, P.S. Crampton's next comment. Okay, we got time. God forbid if the child wants to go to college, then this fake father goes apeshit because now he's got child support till 21. I have seen this response from relatives who I never thought would be like this, who have actually had domestic violence disputes over child support and what the mother does to get it. And trust me, Shanann would have been a monster over child support alimony custody. And that costs. Well, let's not assume that about Shanann. I mean, I can easily see where you're coming from to think that she would be that type of mother. And I kind of think that's where Chris molded himself as a husband, is that he probably, I'm all guessing, I'm not going to say trust me, he probably listened to what Shanann said about her ex-husband, and he just simply didn't do those things, so then he could look like husband of the year to Shanann. Same thing as before. He just looks at whatever the person in front of him wants to hear and says that. But okay, where were you? Oh yeah, and that cost. You have to have a custody lawyer mandatory to go to child support and or custody hearing. Each time minimum lawyer fee $3,000. I learned all this from my ex, and he got into a very foul mood whenever he went through this ordeal, to point where he would break off with me over it. So that's what make a lot of men nowadays try to make people disappear. And don't let the man have a mistress or a girl he's trying to be with. Even Drew Peterson killed to keep from giving up half his pension, and he almost got away with it too, being a cop. Helped. But there's some, I guess you got emotional in this when you were writing it, remembering all this stuff, which I can understand. I can imagine your hand shaking. I'm saying this about the comment. You probably got emotional. And that's why there's a lot of misspellings here. I'm trying to read it, but it's hard to with the misspellings. But to wrap up the last line here, but the reason, the motivation for killing rather than divorce is that child support money. I would agree that it's one reason, but as we see, there are millions of strong, intelligent men who are tough enough to gut out child support payments and still thrive, or at least survive, depending on how evil and parasitic the woman is who's taking the child support payments. Not all men, very, very few men, a very small percentage of men want to make people disappear to get out of child support payments. So we shouldn't hold all men who have to pay child support to the level of the lowest, worst examples who would rather commit murder than do it. But thanks for the comment. I think that I replied to both of those. All right. Well, anyway, I'm running out of time here, so thanks for joining me on this very special full circle edition of Part 20 of Final Replying. See you in Part 21. Part